is the team yesterday. We nipped in the bud. It's over with.
Coach, at the quarterback position, what do you kind of value more? Low mistakes, a guy that can manage the game, or will you live with some mistakes if there's an upside to make something happen that's not there?
Really want no mistakes at quarterback, right? I want to live in that world. I'll go back to my opening statement a couple of days ago, just being consistent. What that guy looks like on and off the field. How does our team respond to him? Does he put us in positions to have an opportunity to win games? And more importantly, we don't need nobody to go out there and be a superhero. They understand that we have a lot of talent around us at the wide receiver position, tight end position, and obviously the running back position. Just allow your weapons to make the plays. Don't force it. So as it goes on, I'm not going to say exactly what I'm looking for. That doesn't be said to the public, but our guys in the building know what they need to do.
Welcome in. It is Jerry Reynolds Tuesday on the King's Court Live, coming to you on If You Don't Like That, kicking off the front end of a doubleheader. Grant and I will be back at 8 o'clock tonight. We had a fun show last night. Went down a different way, to be honest with you. Grant got into some stories about I believe it's the 2017 season. Some of the things that went on behind the scenes, that fine line for somebody in that position, working for the team and also being a member of the media to a degree, where you are having a radio show here in Sacramento, talking to the fans. How do you navigate that? It was interesting stuff. Our boy Gammon kind of started the conversation. And by the way, like I said, 8 o'clock tonight, we will be back at it and taking your questions, taking your calls, talking about whatever you want to talk about it. But it is our favorite day of the week. You guys call it Chicken and Dumplings Tuesday. I call it Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. We are so lucky to have him join us every Tuesday. Thank you, John. Yes, the audio is locked in, my man. We are good. But lucky to have Jerry here. We're going to talk about numerous things. We got the Olympics going on. Little bit of controversy in tennis. Not sure if you saw that. We can update you on the Olympic standings basketball-wise. Team USA still sits atop their group camp, atop their group, which is Group A. We'll go down all that. Webby brings France back in overtime for a big win today. Is France going to be a team USA is going to have to deal with when they get to the elimination rounds? We will see. You heard from Antonio Pierce at the start of the show, Raiders head coach. I liked what he had to say. When you have Devontae Adams, you don't need a guy that's going to go out there at the quarterback position and try to do everything. Get the man the damn ball. I'm not sure how many of you have been watching the Receiver series, which is on Netflix. I thought it has been an excellent representation of what these guys go through on a week-to-week basis, and to a degree, an unfiltered look at what they go through. And remember, Domantas Sabonis, they're going to be releasing a basketball version of Receiver. I forget what it's called. But it is going to be the same idea. In fact, it is already recorded. They're in the editing stages of that. That's going to be coming out closer to the basketball season. So are you excited about that? The Team USA 3-on-3 games going on right now against Serbia. Baki, where you at, my man? Baki, Serbia won the first. I don't know if they call it a set. I don't know if they call it a quarter, but they won the first. I'm going to call it a set over Team USA. Jimmer in the group trying to bounce back here in the second stanza. Been looking at that, but we want to get all of you involved in the show today. If you have a question for Jerry, put it in the chat. We will get to as many of those as we can. If you would like to call and speak to Jerry, have a quick question, I'm all for it. But keep it brief, keep it moving, maybe a quick follow-up. I might take you off screen just because I want to be respectful of Jerry's time. But you are more welcome to do that. Adam did it last week, but our ears, I talked to Jerry. He was actually questionable coming into today's show because of Adam's audio last week. I think he's good. The doc checked him out. We'll be good to go. So let's get it going. What do you want to talk about? I've got a couple of things that I've got up there. The Athletic has dropped their tiers. Yes, they have put the different NBA stars into tiers. Where do you think the Kings fell into that? And in what order do you think the Kings fell into that? We'll get to it in a little bit. Like I said, we can update the Olympics. I feel so bad for Coco Gauff. I'm going to start there really quick. If you didn't see, she was competing in tennis earlier today, and the referee apparently called the ball out. So what did Coco do? It was off of a serve. Coco returned it, right? Her shot was not in play. And then the ref took it back. Coco was in tears arguing with the chair umpire, and to no avail. That ended up being a fairly big point that she was not able to bounce back from and ended up losing the match. She still has a couple more events she's going to compete in, but she definitely let her emotions be known, and fair enough. And another example of instant replay not being used across the board in sports. So let's get to the comments really quick as we await the one and only Jerry Reynolds. Do you like Fox? Hellafire starting us off today. What's up, Hellafire? Do you like Fox and Monk starting together like the Kentucky days? If you would have asked me that before DeMar DeRozan came to this Sacramento team, the answer would have been yes. Now I'm not so sure, because you want to put a balanced lineup out there. Last year, I would have said Monk should have been starting from day one, and that's because the Kings didn't have the depth. The Kings were not good enough to gameplay to say, you know what, we'll hit them with our second wave after we get 9 minutes out of the starters. No, the Kings needed to come out, especially as they struggled throughout the year, and punch teams in the face with their best shot. That did not happen. So as of right now, Hellafire, I'm kind of leaning towards Keon Ellis. I am. And the reason for that is because of the low expectations to get Keon involved in the offense, yet Keon still finding ways to contribute. I'm not saying Keon's going to be the starter. Don't forget about a guy named Kevin Huerter. He's coming back off of the injury. There's a lot of debate about Kevin and whether he has something to prove this year, whether he should be coming off the bench, what he can do for the second unit. I'm probably a little bit more leaning towards Kevin in the second unit, only because when he played with the second unit last year, it seemed like he was a little bit more loose. He was able to go out there and play a little bit more free than he was with the starters. So we'll see. Adam, who's Adam? I don't know who Adam is. Adam, are you new to the show? What's up, Adam? We used to have another Adam, but that guy changed his name to the casual guy. So Adam number 2, welcome to the show. Glad you're here, buddy. John, I told you the audio's locked in. We are good to go. Adam hopping back in. Chicken and Dumpling Tuesdays. For those that don't know, Jerry carbs up the night before. Chicken and dumplings are his favorite meal, and he has a restaurant that he has found that makes them damn near close to the ones his mother used to make. So that is high praise for that restaurant. But yes, it is Chicken and Dumplings Tuesday. Okay, good. Awesome. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Gammon, please bring up a Pete D'Alessandro story. Yeah, we'll get there. I'm not going to start off with that, but we will definitely get there. No doubt. Alberto, what's up, my man? Rhino, did you see that a man was allowed to box a woman at the Olympics? It's a shame what's going on. Yeah, I'm not going to open that box right now. That could take up an entire show. And no, I did not, Alberto. I have not paid much attention to the boxing. I know it's just gotten started the last couple of days. I've been watching more of the swimming. By the way, the women's team gymnastics, they take gold. They are back atop the world, led by Simone Biles. So, yeah, Alberto, let's open that one another day if Jerry wasn't joining us. Japan calls was bigger, Webinyama, and they should have lost. Dude, Japan has some small guys. They've got 2 point guards under 6 feet. One of them, I believe, is at 5'6". Hell of a compliment to him being able to be out there and run with some of these guys that are the best in the world. But yes, that was an interesting one. And guess what? Team USA, things don't necessarily get much easier with South Sudan. That game takes place tomorrow. It's going to be a completely different game than what you saw with Team USA against Serbia. And I say different in this way. Serbia runs a lot through their big man, the Joker, Jokic. But South Sudan, they do a lot more on the perimeter. And that's going to be an interesting matchup for Team USA because I've worried about their defense on the perimeter, especially switching matchups and their ability to score actually on the other side of the court in the half court. In transition, Team USA, nobody can touch them. Nobody can even come close to the strength, the speed, but that requires them to get stops defensively. South Sudan, anything's possible. They can shoot the ball pretty well from beyond the arc. Remember, USA had to get a late basket to beat them in exhibition play. Now, get it? Exhibition play. Steve Kerr didn't have Kevin Durant. But I do have to question, and I'll pose this question to all of you as well. Do you think it's feasible that Team USA is going to be shooting 56% from beyond the arc in their remaining games? I got to think that is going to go down a little bit, but I am interested to see what the rotations are going to look like tomorrow when Team USA takes them on. Did you guys see this whole thing about, it's called the basketball tournament, the TBT? It's been going on now for at least 4 or 5 years. Within the last couple of years, it caught some national TV run. ESPN picked it up. What it is it is a men's basketball tournament, adult tournament that teams play, and these teams are made up largely of old college players, guys that may have played in the pros. In fact, one of the guys, one of your old Sacramento Kings, Willie Cauley-Stein, plays for La Familia, which happens to be Kentucky's entrant into that tournament. Well, Kentucky played Louisville's team last night. In fact, they damn near filled the arena. They doubled the attendance, but it wasn't the game that I want to talk about. It's what happened after the game. That was really bad. You had a guy that spit in another player's face. And that has no place whatsoever anywhere in this world, let alone in sports. But what are we talking about here? You've got a bunch of, no disrespect, has-beens. You got a bunch of guys that aren't good enough to play overseas. You got a bunch of guys that aren't good enough to be in the association anymore. And to get put on a platform which might give you a look or an opportunity to maybe transition, revive your basketball career, and you act like that, it's a bad look. It's especially on national TV. So happy to have everyone here. By the way, we are brought to you by Bennett's West Side Grill in Rockland. Don't want to forget about them. I know most of you have not. If you have not checked out Bennett's, make sure you get to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. You can find out more about all 3 of their locations. The West Side Grill is their newest one in Rockland, located in the Blue Oaks Town Center. They got a little bit of everything for your entire family, and it is out of this world amazing. Whether you get the redfish, the New York prime steak, oh, how about weekend brunch, $49 Get you 2 entrees and a bottle of champagne. So many more offerings, including their happy hour from 2 to 6 during the week. There's sips and tastes. I know a number of you have checked out Bennett's already. Big thanks and a shout out to all of you for doing that. If you haven't, go check them out. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com for more information. You can get reservations there. Also, learn more about their to-goes and catering style to-goes. Huge thanks to Brian and the team at Bennett's for sponsoring If You Don't Like That and the King's Court today. So I don't see a question in the chat for Jerry Reynolds yet. You guys don't have questions for Jerry? I get to be the lucky one that has all the questions. What's going on? Come on, let's get those questions in there. And again, if you would like to call the show and come on briefly with Jerry, I am open to it. But get in, get out. Don't make it too long because I want to leave enough room for everyone else. So that is open for you. The link is in the chat. I will put it right here again for you. Also, the QR code over my shoulder will bring that up as well. Grant and I back at it 8 o'clock tonight. Make sure you join back up with us. You never know which way those shows are going to go. So we are looking forward to that. El Cap hopping in. Is there any rumors on the Kings signing another free agent? Not for a roster spot. Now, you might see another free agent or two be signed to a training camp contract, which means they're coming into training camp. They're competing for that open roster spot. The contracts they sign are not guaranteed. Boogie Ellis earlier this week, or I should say last weekend, was signed to one of those contracts, so he will be competing. There is a little bit of chatter when it comes to trades. A couple of names that are still coming up. One of them catching a tiny bit more traction because of the reports that are coming out of Portland. That one is Jeremy Grant. Now, Jeremy Grant fits a lot of the needs, fits a lot of the different pieces of the puzzle that this Kings team still is outstanding. If you look at their roster as it sits, you do worry a little bit about that 4/5 position and who's going to be able to be that solid backup, who possibly could be that guy that could play with Sabonis, assuming Sabonis is able to extend his game a little bit. And hell, I'm not going to lie, Jeremy Grant fits that profile beautifully. The question becomes, are you willing to give up what it takes to get Jeremy Grant? Reports are that the Portland Trailblazers are asking for 2 first-round picks. And I guess I would pose this question to all of you. If the Kings truly are on this upward trajectory, how worried are all of you, or how worrisome is it when you think about giving up a first-round pick? Because if the Kings are going the right direction and they continue to improve, continue to get better, move up the Western Conference standings, get a playoff spot, hell, win a playoff series, guess what? Those first-round picks aren't necessarily as valuable as, say, this last year's pick was, because you're not planning to be in the lottery. So I would think for Jeremy Grant, a deal that could get that done would be 2 first rounds, probably because you have to match the salaries, Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles. Would that be a combination that you would be willing to give up? Now, that deal has been out there. That's nothing new. The Trailblazers are renewing through the media the fact that they are looking to move off of Grant and possibly Anthony Simons as well. So that's an interesting one. The second one, by the way, is Cam Johnson. Now, Cam Johnson, the Kings were engaged in talks possibly to grab him on draft night. His contract is not as bad as Jeremy Grant's. Jeremy Grant, you get him for another, I believe, 3 years, then a player option for the 4th, but you're paying premium money. Now, I don't necessarily, again, have a problem with it. However, it would take a little bit of that flexibility that Monty McNair swears by. One of the pillars of the way he runs a front office, it takes a little bit of that away. Let me pull up the numbers right now for Jeremy Grant. In fact, I think we already have Portland up right here. Yes, we do. So Jeremy Grant's money looks like this. He's under contract the next 3 seasons. He'd be making 29.7 this year, 32 in 25, 26, 26, 27. He'll be making 34.2. Considering inflation, and he still has a decent upside. He does. Being a little, he can play that 4, play some 5, shooting, a bit left to be desired. But then you go into a player option with $36.4 million. So those are the 2 names that are out there. Brooklyn obviously looking to rebuild. They have reset their roster to a degree with Jordi Fernandez, first-year head coach, obviously assistant coach for the Kings up and he was hired in Brooklyn. So we will talk some more about the Kings and those possible trades and options that have been reported. But first, as promised, we are incredibly lucky every single week to have the man, Jerry Reynolds, here with us on the Kings Court.
Yeah, great to be with you, Ryan, and the fans. Really always looking forward to it. Got out there early, got my walk in, and
good.
Even took a shower, cleaned up a little bit, so don't look quite so scruffy. So
love it. And I remember you said you started preparing at the end of last Tuesday's show for today, so I know you're ready to go.
Well, that's the good news. I started preparing, but today I forgot all of it. So it's
Love it. So, Jerry, before you came on, some of the questions in the chat were asking about possible rumors with the Kings around free agents and trades. A couple of the names lately that have been floated around: Jeremy Grant of Portland and Cam Johnson. Both of those would cost a steep price for the Kings. What do you think of both of those names?
Well, they would both help. Like you say, what you have to give up, and obviously certainly contract wise Grant has a large commitment there, so you'd have to get quite a bit to get him. I think the only issue I'd have with both of them, they're neither exactly, in my mind, what the Kings need most, a big power forward type that they're more a little bigger versions of taller versions maybe of DeRozan, but probably aren't quite as as accomplished as DeRozan. So
sure,
it gives them it's more talent and more scoring, but you still have in my mind, a void at the power position.
Yeah, the Kings made a signing from Miami, Orlando Robinson. He's going to be here on a 1-year deal. Jerry, have you had a chance to look at his game, and do you think he could have any impact for the Kings this year?
I think there's a chance. He played really well in the G League.
Great,
That's really good stats, and of course, he had a couple of decent outings with the Heat. It's just one of those things. You don't know till you get him. To me, it's a good get. There's not much risk there. And he is an athletic guy that seems to grow. Now, my big concern, or only concern, would be, and it'd be interesting how the fans think of it, is it's been my experience that the Miami Heat make very few mistakes.
Sure.
and knowing Pat Riley, when they basically waive a player. So there's usually a message there. So now the only other reason I would say it might be okay, because generally speaking, I'd say if Riley and the Heat have given up on somebody, you might as well walk away too. But I think it's a little different because their draft pick, Khalil Ware, was really maybe the star of Summer League in a lot of ways. And, he was drafted late, a 6'11" kid who's clearly better than Sarr or probably Klingon too. I mean, he was better
Yeah.
than two of the bigs that were picked in the top 5. So, I think the Heat really got a steal maybe of the draft. He looked to me like Derek Lively with Dallas, but he can shoot.
Shoot. Yeah.
and,
Exactly.
and so so anyway, so I kind of think that's probably why, they said, well, we got a young one, we're going to play with Adebayo, so there's no real minutes. So on that basis, I feel better about the Kings taking a Heat waived player.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And Khalil Ware, first team all summer league for what it's worth. And to your point, Orlando Robinson for Sioux Falls averaged 24 and 11 in 24 games in the G League, and 5 of those 11 per game were offensive rebounds, something the Kings definitely would like.
Yeah, and I mean he's certainly getting better. He's proven, he's got a shooting stroke. I mean, now he's still a work in progress, but I always say the thing about G League, if a guy goes down there and really doesn't put up good numbers, then he's probably not a prospect.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. We've tried to. I think fans over the years have tried to convince themselves of guys, like Woodward a few years ago, or
Sure.
Ramsey, who they still might be roster guys, but it was pretty clear from their G League experience that they probably weren't the answer to any questions.
Yeah, we'll see how Bronny does down in the G League. We'll see if he's the answer. That's going to be the next debate for the Lakers with their G League team.
Well, you think LeBron will let him stay down there very long? Or I mean, probably if he averages more than 5 a game, I'm sure LeBron's going to demand he be brought up to the big team and maybe get in the rotation.
Yeah, Jerry, I don't even know if he's ready to get minutes in the G League. And I covered the Stockton Kings closely last year.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's one of those things. I'm not saying he can't be a player someday.
Sure.
But there's probably he just simply wasn't really ready to be a draftable player.
No.
He was, and then certainly a summer league performance had a couple of games to where he showed a little something, but he's probably a couple years away from being a couple years away.
That's a good way to put it. A couple years away from being a couple years away. All right. El Cap has the first question from the chat for you. Jerry, what was your favorite job with the Kings and favorite season with them? GM, coach, or broadcaster?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, it was broadcasting. I really enjoyed broadcasting. Obviously, you don't lose games there and all, but working with Grant and I'd have to say maybe it'd be probably a lot of people might not totally understand it, but I think the most fun year I had broadcasting was the 98-99 season. It was a shortened season lockout, but that was Jay Will and Page's rookie year of Lottie Webb. That whole team came together then, and and it was just so much fun to watch it. And for me, I just enjoyed practices and everything. Rick Adelman as a coach had been a friend a long time, so it was just kind of the perfect storm. And,
sure. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. How different was it for you, and even to a degree, Rick Adelman, with a guy like Jason Williams that played the point guard position so much different than anybody else at that time?
Yeah, well, it really showed you, I think, a lot about the ability of Rick as a coach, because he was very creative and really underrated as a creative offensive coach, and was good with players. And Jay Will at that time was pretty hard to coach. I mean, he was out there, he was out there in the Neverland somewhere sometimes, but truly gifted. There's no doubt about that. And really created a lot of excitement. And it was a case where Rick really basically threw the rookie out there,
Yeah.
And as the year went on, he got better and better. And, he was always a wild child. There's no doubt about that. But, I thought, the veterans, Vlade in particular, C. Webb too. I mean, they were good with Jay Will. They loved playing with him because, he was like they were. The ball's going to move if somebody's open.
Sure.
And so, but it's such a fun thing, just to every night. And well, I always say that for me, that at that time for a year or so, because of Jason, not just strictly, but he was so much fun in practice because he'd always do something in practice that you'd said, my God, that's not possible.
I
And sometimes it'd be bad, but I mean, he was just like I say, it always goes back to when I helped Cotton Fitzsimmons a little bit with Atlanta Hawks when I was a coach in Georgia, and and Pete Maravich was there. It'd be the
Sure.
same kind of thing that in practice it was so much fun because same kind of thing. He'd do something. You say, my God, that's unbelievable. That can't be done.
yeah.
A
Yeah.
70-foot bounce pass on where a guy catches it on or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. No, 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 no. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So
How did he do
yeah.
that? Yeah.
But anyway, so that would be my, like I say, broadcasting. I really, and I really did enjoy it. Grant was great to work with, and the team was so much fun, and not just Rick, but being around the assistant coaches at that time, Elston Turner and John Wetzel. Just really the best of times. That's the way I'd put it.
Love it. Prime time. And that was the start of the run for this team, which is still very talked about to this day. So those were the best of times. I want to take you to the other side of the spectrum for this reason. Last night, Grant and I were having a show, and he was asked a few questions about broadcasting. And we were talking about walking that fine line because Grant obviously had the radio show, but then worked for the Kings, calling the games. And the season with Pete D'Alessandro came up, especially when Mike Malone was fired, and the players weren't happy. The city wasn't happy. Grant handled it a certain way. Grant wanted me to bring it up as well to you. What was your perspective on everything going on at that time from the broadcast position?
Well, it was clearly a mistake. I mean, Mike Malone's a heck of a coach. I thought so at the time. I mean, I never questioned a coach. I certainly was around Pete D'Alessandro and Mully and on. Here's a lot of the things said, about their visions of the coach and things of that nature. And it was the old. Well, the King, and I think Vivek was part of that too. Like the Kings, they got to run more. They got to be an up. Well, you're not going to run more with Cousins.
Exactly.
He's not going to run. Players. So, it's a little bit like in the days of Mitch Richmond. I mean, a lot of guys, there's several guys that would really been good in up tempo, but Mitch really wasn't. He was great in the half court. And so that's the way you played. But anyway, it was just a total misunderstanding of how good a coach he was, and that the roster wasn't nearly as good as they thought it was. There again, that happens sometimes with front office and coaches. The front office thinks, because they put some guys on the roster that they're better than they are.
Yeah.
But Mike was not the problem. There were problems with the team and, the on the court, talent wise, and then, in the front office as well. And you've heard me say this. I learned a long time ago, Jack McCloskey was the general manager of the Detroit Pistons through the bad boy days, of two champions. And we'd been friends for a long time, going back to college. And he had told me, he said, one thing to keep in mind in the pros, he said, one of the most important things, you'll never have a good team on the floor till you have a team off the floor. And I really believe that's true. In other words, and of course, I saw it come to fruition with Jeff working for Petrie and Wayne Cooper and everybody there for those great years. We had a great team off the floor to go with the team on the floor. In other words, you had everybody together, coaches, front office.
Sure.
Everybody on the same page. I think you have that now, but
Sure.
it hadn't always been the case.
Yeah, certainly not. When you have everybody together, does that kind of harbor and help promote that off the court as well for the players? It's been widely reported and talked about how close those teams were from 2001, 2002, both on and off the court.
Well, I will say, you have to have kind of a team leader, and guys are willing to kind of stay in their lanes, follow. And I mean, that team had, with Vladi in particular, he really was the leader, and everybody's, he brought everybody together and smoothed over the little problems now and then.
Yeah.
But I always said too, and the coach, he really, Rick was good at spotting little problems and not letting them get to be big problems. And I mean, I always think that's kind of like marriage. If you can kind of spot that little problem coming and don't let it get too big, your marriage
Yes.
will go a lot better. So we, definitely had a lot of that, kind of leadership, and then just winning. You always talk about culture, winning. Well, winning games will give you winning culture.
Sure.
And because I've been around some teams that really liked one another and great guys, they just weren't very good, and so it didn't have winning culture because they weren't good enough to win.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that winning culture is important. So Anita, one of the most knowledgeable people in this room, we're going back to some of the possible trade talk, and for the Kings to pursue a guy like a Cam Johnson, whether it's what they need or not, or Jeremy Grant, whether it's what they need or not. How do you look at how valuable giving up a first round pick is for a team like the Kings now, considering they think they can win now?
Well, I think, I definitely think they've improved themselves, and I think they should continue to try to get more talent. I mean, it's still a talent league.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many scores you can have. That may be, guys who are primarily looking to score the ball, because at some point there's only one ball, and and so that has another set of issues there. But I think you're always looking to get more talent. Now, as far as future first round picks, in my mind, this is a Kings window here of maybe I'd say 3 to 4 years. So I wouldn't be worried about a pick 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, first of all, in my case, I'd probably be gone anyway. But I mean, I definitely think, this is the time you want to try to get as good as you can to have a chance while you have Fox and Sabonis and Keegan and Malik Monk and kind of near their primes or really at it. So, and then as long as you got protections on the pick,
Sure.
that's a big thing, because right now you'd say, well, yeah, the Kings are not going to be in the lottery or give up. You never know. Injuries can change things. So you always want to make sure you have protections on the probably lottery protected. And so I wouldn't worry about it as much, because the truth is, as far as talent, you can always probably, instead of the money you'd pay a draft choice, there'll probably be a reasonably young veteran available that may be just about as good as somebody you would have drafted.
Very good point. Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Jerry Reynolds Tuesday on the Kings Court. Always a pleasure having Jerry with us. So speaking of draft picks, I want to go back really quick to Devin Carter. I don't want to talk about him as a player, but do you think there's something that needs to be fixed with the way that the evaluation period works with the NBA draft? Because I can't fault the young man if he thought maybe, I got banged up, but I can play through it, and the Kings would have no way of knowing that he was injured. Vice versa, if let's go to the other end of the spectrum, maybe something was really wrong and a player doesn't disclose it because they want to go as high. Do you think there's a way that the team should be getting some type of shared information or a standard physical before the draft to avoid situations like this?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, certainly in the past, and I don't know what happened at the combine, say this year, they do a complete physicals on those guys, and then teams have access to that. Now, it's also true years ago, and I don't think they do it as much now, but we'd always, anybody we brought in to work out, especially lottery type guys, you'd have them take physical, so to speak, And so get a lot of information that way as well as psychological evaluation, which I thought was very helpful. But yeah, I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think the Kings were aware of that, because I know of a couple friends still that scouts and things told me they were aware of that he had some shoulder issues. Maybe didn't know exactly
Right.
but that's why he slipped. Most people
Mm,
had him going, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, and so I think it's a case of the Kings probably were aware that he would miss time, maybe not as much, but
right.
talent was, they felt, the best they could get at that spot. I mean, and so time will tell whether that's a good judgment or not. But I think, generally speaking, the people I've talked to seem to say, because I've asked them, like, say if you were in a king spot, what you done? And most said, yeah, I'd take him.
Yeah.
He's not going to play a lot anyway as a rookie. And so, I mean, you look back, Joel Embiid missed 2 years, and
Very
Ben
true.
Simmons missed a year, first pick in the draft, and Blake Griffin missed a year. Chet Holmgren missed a year. So it's it's not something you really want, but it's not, he's not 40.
Exactly. It's not the end of the world. Nikola Topic, the point guard that Oklahoma City drafted, partially torn ACL. He's expected to miss this year. Now, granted, Oklahoma City's window is probably a little bit larger than the Kings,
Yeah.
but it's a good point. There is something, we've talked about this, guys that decide to go to the G League as opposed to going the college route, getting into that pro mindset, the pro routine, because Jerry, routine is half the battle sometimes in the association, right?
Well, it is. And I mean, and you have, once you get into professional ranks, and I'm not sure really anymore if the colleges aren't pretty much professional too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll see fewer and fewer guys go to the G League when they could go to college, because they'll make more money in college. So
NIL.
I think the guys that go straight to G League, guys who just don't want to go to college, but it's not about the money. But yeah, anyway, but you do have everything available to you to work on your craft. You don't have to go to class and have study halls and things of that nature, and so that probably speeds the process up, I think, a good bit.
Yeah, definitely. Getting some great questions in the chat. If you have anything for Jerry, put those in there. We will get to them. USA basketball rolls Serbia in their opening game. Kevin Durant, 23 in 17 minutes. Any big takeaways from Team USA's first game, Jerry?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, clearly they're the class. I think, talent-wise, there's nobody can match the talent of the USA. But it doesn't mean somebody with 2 or 3 high-level players like Canada might not be able to beat them. I mean, I think there's teams that could beat them. I mean, I was telling somebody today, talking about the Dream Team. I said, well, I never compare eras. I mean, that was the greatest team ever assembled. But this team at this time, talent-wise, because they probably have 10, all 10 Hall of Famers or so at least. But the thing about the Dream Team was they weren't playing against any NBA guys on the other teams.
Great point.
So it was a different time. That Dream Team created what we're seeing now a good bit with the great Europeans and South Americans and Australians. It really has become a world game. And as we know, probably maybe the 4 best players in the world are not Americans, and it's interesting in that game with Serbia. It was interesting that actually, as long as Jokic was on the floor, they played USA even. The 9 minutes he didn't play, they got blown out by 20-some on each little segment that he didn't play. So
great point.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't see anybody beating them, but like I say, it's a different world out there, that every team they play has some NBA players. None of them have as many as America has.
Right.
But it's like, say, with Bogdanovic and Jokic, they if they'd had 2 more quality type players, I think it might make a pretty good game of it, and that's kind of why with Germany or some of them we might see that.
Yeah, especially down low. We've talked about how international basketball lends itself to the big men. Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo did not have great showings in that game, both 4 points only. And I feel like that could be the wild card for this team because nobody can touch them in transition, Jerry. But when they're playing defense in the half court, they can be a little susceptible.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and especially the other teams can play a lot of zone, which now when Durant's being Durant, I mean, I'm not sure you can play zone against the USA, 40 minutes, but so that's where they've got a lot of advantage, and then just the overall time when you got Curry and you got a Jason Tatum who didn't even get in the game.
Didn't play, yeah.
Goodness gracious, I mean, when you're good enough that way, so yeah, it's be interesting to see. But I think this is no question, one of the most talented teams ever assembled. So they better get a gold. That's all I can say.
They better get a gold. USA basketball might be rebuilt from the bottom floor if they don't come home with those gold medals this year. Baki has a quick question for you, Jerry.
Great.
First of all, hi guys. A long time no see. I would like to say hello to Jerry. How are you, Jerry? How are you, Rhino?
Thanks. Very good. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, great. I see you are watching the Olympics. Great. We are in Greece in the moment, and we are watching it from here, and it's really great. But about basketball, I mean, as you already said, it will be really shame for the USA if not getting the gold. But I think they will get it if the guys like Durant start to play the same. I mean, you don't need two guys. You only need one. If Durant is playing like this, nothing to ask more.
Right.
So I'm not worried about Tatum not playing. He will go. He's ready to go. He will play another game. So I will not make something big out of it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a matter of this team. If all they got to do is find 5 or 6 guys on a nightly basis playing at a high level, and that'll be good enough.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they've got enough. It's like the other teams that they're going to have all of their best players probably have to have A games, but USA's got enough guys that if half of them have A games, that'll be enough.
And all of their best players for the other teams will have to play 40 minutes too.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the USA has definite shifts. And to the Tatum point, it was a matchup thing, Steve Kerr said, and South Sudan plays a little bit more of a perimeter game, so you can expect Tatum definitely will get some more run there. So, Jerry, if you didn't know it, this is actually Baki's daughter. Right
Holy
here.
moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
She does the holy moly Jim Bob Bowley. So, Jerry, since Tedora's here, I think it's only fitting, Tedora, you give Jerry a holy moly Jim Bob Bowley.
Yes. Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
I mean, that's better than I ever did, right there. That is top flight.
Love it.
It's something like 1 a.m. here in Greece. It's more late than in Serbia, but I think the whole area now heard the holy moly Jimba Boli. I would like somebody to recognize it. But anyway, Rhino, thank you very much for I mean, sometimes I'm not live in the program and I'm watching it tomorrow, and a big appreciation for having that kind of from every show ending. This is really great. This is really great.
Of course. Well, thank you both for calling in.
May I ask you one more thing? How do you like? I don't know if you saw other teams playing. I mean basketball part. How do you like NBA players doing in all those other teams? I mean, tonight was a game where Canada beats Australia, and it was a lot of NBA players. And it was really interesting to see how they will. I mean, you saw Giddy playing against Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. It's a really interesting stuff going beside U.S. national team. So a lot of NBA players like never before.
Yeah, it's great. I think, it just shows, that the influence of the U.S., goes probably back to the Dream Team, where now, as we talked about before, probably I think the top four guys as far as MVP voting were all not from America.
That's right.
With Jokic and
Giannis.
Embiid and Doncic and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, so it's certainly America has maybe more talent than any other country, but they don't necessarily, have the best players anymore, the best individuals. So we're seeing, I think that's great. It's making it truly a world's game.
No
Well, I
doubt.
was satisfied with 10-2 lead, and then I said, okay, it's enough for me.
Yeah.
Because they were like, okay, timeout. So I was in the big crowd in that moment, and I was like this, standing up and said, "Timeout, USA."
Yeah, game over for us. Hey,
Game over.
Baki
Yep.
Tedora, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I did think really quick to that, and we'll get to this question from John. I thought that one of Steve Kerr's first substitutions was really interesting. It was Derek White, and it told you he was not happy with what was going on defensively.
Yeah, well, one thing too. I got to go back. I saw a question, if you don't mind. Some gentleman was pointed on there. It said, "What happened with the physical when the Kings took Ralph?"
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me explain that a little bit. Bill Russell was the general manager at that time, and I was the coach. But he traded Jim Peterson for Ralph, and certainly Ralph had all kinds of knee problems, and bless his heart, and couldn't get right. But Jim Peterson was in the hospital at that time with getting knee surgery. So they were basically, both teams were just trading, an injured guy for an injured guy. And I think Bill's feeling was that, well, if Ralph could get close to healthy, he'd be a lot better than Jim. Well, that would have been true, but neither one really got healthy to any level after that. So anyway, I just wanted to answer that. But not often do you trade for an injured guy, but the only reason you would is if you're trading an injured
guy. Yeah, that's kind of funny. And to John's question, Jerry, who was Jim Bob Boley? Could he play defense, make free throws?
Jim Bob Boley played. He was kind of a high school star in Corden, Indiana, back in the early 60s. I played against him. He was supposed to be a star, and I kicked his butt, by the way. So
nice.
I always remember that. I kind of talked trash to Jim Bob, let him know that Caucasian Comet was taking over.
Caucasian Comet, baby.
So, but anyway, that was Jim Bob Boley. I think he ended up playing college down in New Mexico, not to any level, but anyway, that's where it came from. And I always used to, kind of like to make fun of him because he, I was just kind of a butthead at that time, and wanted to make sure Jim Bob knew that he wasn't the main man in the area.
Love it. You got to talk a little trash. You got to make it interesting.
A little trash. I mean, I always talked to like a Mark Bird, Larry's older brother. Always told Larry, said you told Larry, said, "You're not the first guy to talk trash around here." It's Jerry Reynolds. I said, yeah, the difference was Larry could always back it up. I couldn't always back it up. I could talk it. I just couldn't always back it up.
I love it. That is so good. There was actually a question that we missed. Any funny Larry Bird stories?
Well, I could think of about 1,000, and I told many of them. I was always thinking one that just kind of, I think, showed his genius as a player was we were playing the Celtics at home, and this was late in his career, but he was still top top 5 player in the league for sure.
Mhm.
And I was director of player personnel. I wasn't coaching then, but he'd come out the house and we'd have a few beers and I always remember him telling me, he said, Dick Motta was a coach. And he said, I hate Motta's offense. Everybody, I know all the plays better than your guys do. And all bull crap. And he said, well, when they run this play, I can't remember what he called it. I think the get or something like that. He said, I know
Yeah.
where you sit, and I'm going to steal the ball, and I'm going to turn and look at you. And so about 3 or 4 minutes into the game, they ran that play. He stole the ball. He just turned around and I sat right on the end zone there. And he looked at me about 2 seconds. It seemed like it was a half a minute or 2
Yeah,
minutes.
forever.
I said, okay. So it's just a reminder. Not that I didn't know. It's always just a reminder of the difference between the greats and the goods. That there's
Yes.
a different level of understanding of the game and how they're steps ahead.
Steps ahead. The mind never stops. It's incredible. You hear stories about Kobe calling Jordan late at night or vice versa. It's just constantly collaboration. I could go on for some college stories, but incredible. So I'll ask this. Have you been watching any other Olympic sports so far besides basketball?
Not much.
Okay.
I love track and field.
Yes.
I will watch, the swimming finals, kind of when they get into the finals for the most part. But track and field is what I love, and the basketball,
Sure.
men's and women's. I'll watch that. So there's so much on. I just I used to watch a lot more, but it's just one of those things that track and field and basketball pretty much does it for me. I respect all the athletes. I mean, to do what they do and to sacrifice what they have to, but
Incredible.
just probably not into breakdancing that much. What I'm saying,
I feel you.
or so. It's certainly a skill, that's for sure.
I was going to say, if Jerry Reynolds had to do the high dive, breakdance, or flag football, which one would it be?
Ooh, boy.
I'm leaning towards
It'd be flag football if they let me play wide receiver and promise not to throw me the ball because I couldn't get open anyway. So I'd be in no danger out there.
Be the center. Just toss it back to the quarterback. Yeah. Speaking of football, Jerry, you got another championship team getting ready to start a new season.
You bet. Being a Chiefs fan, it's easy to be a Chiefs fan, but I know that my second favorite team really is the Niners, and if the Chiefs don't win, I hope it is the Niners that do. I mean, I think whether there's so many things can happen. Injuries are such a key to football. I've always said, I think many times, the key to winning football is having a great second unit.
Yes.
Especially with key linemen and stuff, man, you've got to replace those guys and with talent. And
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'm a big NFL fan. I love it. I can't wait till it gets good. Now I'm not excited about the preseason. I wouldn't, I can't stand that. I like that even less than the NBA preseason.
Yeah. I'm going to take the opposite take on that. I actually enjoy the NFL preseason because you get to see a lot of the guys that are on the fringe of making the roster give it a go, and they're not running complicated plays. It's pretty straightforward, saving the good stuff for the regular season. But you see sometimes those guys playing for jobs, and because the NFL doesn't have a feeder league, I enjoy watching that sometimes, minus the injuries.
Well, it is true that with less preseason games, that it does take on more importance for guys trying to make teams.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that. I'm just star. I just worry about the stars. You know what I'm saying? I just worry about my Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey and Debo and Kelsey. I'm kind of, that's where I am with football.
I've never seen a guy like Mahomes bounce back from injuries as quickly as he does. That high ankle sprain in the playoffs, it's incredible stuff. We're going to end here. Miss Anita gets the final question. Jerry, if the Kings start the season with the roster as currently constructed and assuming Herter is on the team, what should be the starting lineup?
Well, that's a great question, Anita, and obviously she kind of knows her stuff. I just give my opinion. If it were me and the roster is as it is now, I would start De'Aaron and Keon Ellis at guard because I love the way they play defense at the end of the year. And Keon's a nice fit-in guy, especially now that you got DeMar DeRozan, another scorer. So you need a guy to kind of fit in, take open shots, and then Keegan at 4, Domas at 5. Now that's a small team, but I think you'd have not only Monk coming off the bench, I think Herter, once he adjusts, you could play him maybe even when you go small ball a little bit at small forward, and I think you've got another scorer to come off your bench. But I like the idea of getting your best players on the floor. And certainly with the exception of Monk, you would have that. I mean, he's one of your best players. You just don't start him. But anyway, that's what I would do. I mean, it's a small team, but I think it would really be hard to guard.
I am 100% with you. 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, you're going to have trouble defending the basket at times, and you're going to get oversized. But it's also true, bigger teams have got to guard your guys.
Exactly.
And so I kind of go with the John Wooden theory I've always have, and is it get your best players on the floor and try to have a quickness advantage at every position if you can. And
there you go.
and so anyway, Anita, that's my thoughts.
Jerry, thank you so much for joining us every Tuesday. We can't thank you enough. And excuse me, I'm going to get in trouble. Did you get your chicken and dumplings?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, Mrs.
Yes.
Reynolds even suggested it. I'm just about. I think I got her turned around, but I can't do it every. I mean, like I say, I have to pick my spots. I mean, because being a diabetic, it's not really what you should be eating. But boy, they're good. And
well, we will have to, and we'll pick the spot, but we'll have to chicken and dumplings. I know how much you enjoy those.
All right. Hold you to it. All right. See ya.
Awesome, Jerry. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week.
See you, Ryan.
All right. Bye, Jack. The one and only Jerry Reynolds with us. So Jerry and I actually going the same way on that. Before Jerry came on, we were talking about the starting 5 for the Kings. Great questions, by the way, everybody. Really well done. Anita, so great to see you in the chat. I love it when Anita drops in. Good question to end on. I'm with Jerry. Your best 5 is Malik Monk. He's right. And we acknowledge that. But there's not enough, in my opinion, shots. I think you're wasting a little bit of offense there. Having Keon in that position, what it brings you defensively. And remember, just because you start the game doesn't mean that you're finishing the game. It matters who's on the court when the game is at the end. So excellent stuff from Jerry. Let me know what you thought. If any way you want to take it, we can get there. Off the clock. That a boy.
Holy
Patrick.
moly, Jimbo Bowley.
Love it, buddy. Yeah, I did ask Jerry. I didn't bring up the Boston game, but because Jerry, you got to remember, he was in a different position than Grant. Jerry wasn't doing, and although he came on Grant's show every week, he wasn't doing the radio show every day. But I thought Jerry's answer after he kind of handled that one and talked about the 98, 99 team and how much it made a difference to have everybody. He basically said everybody can't be on the same page on the court if everybody off the court isn't on the same page. And he talked about how great the atmosphere was with Jeff Petrie and that entire team, Rick Adelman, and how much of a difference it made, just both for morale, but just it brought winning, and certainly winning helps morale. But I definitely thought that was a really good answer. And then also, were you surprised? The fun season for him, 1999. Jason Williams. That makes sense. I mean, Jason Williams, when he came into the NBA, to me, it was like he walked off of a spaceship from a different universe that played basketball a different way. The behind the back passes, and not just the behind the back passes off the elbow, the pulling up for threes. Remember 55 used to be a center number for the most part. Wear number 55. It was so different, but so good. So, anyways, what a fun time having Jerry as always. Good job by Tedora, by the way. That was a heck of a live holy moly Jim Bob Bowley. Jerry, the Bobby Heenan of NBA commentary. You think Jerry's weasel of NBA commentary, Derek? I'm going to go the other way. He's not the Bobby Heenan. Now, he definitely gets some good one-liners in there, and he has fun, but he's not slimy like Heenan was. But that's what made Heenan so lovable, because it was like a sliminess that you just couldn't help but like the guy. I mean, would we say Paul Heyman is maybe the closest thing to that right now? Probably Paul Heyman would be my guess. Got some good comments in here. Jokic and Luka are first and second best players in the world. So let's talk about this for a second. The Athletic came out with its tiers for NBA players. Now, the tiers are in no specific order. Tier 1 has 1A and 1B. You have 3 players in 1A, and you have 3 players in 1B. Put in the chat who you think the 6 players are that the Athletic has in tier 1. We'll get back to that in a second, but let me tell you where your Kings line up. Your highest tiered player is De'Aaron Fox. And not only does it show their tier, but they show their tiers over time. They had De'Aaron Fox in July of 20 as a fourth tier player, 4A tier. Same thing, July of 21. Lower than that in July of 22. They dropped him to 4B. Then January 23 rolls around. That was his all-star year. Comes up to a 3rd tier player. Then this last season, August 23rd, tier 3. De'Aaron now is a 2nd tier player. They have him as 2C. 2C. Not too bad. Some other guys in that tier. I know my boy Jay is going to have a huge problem with this. Jaylen Brown. 2C. Bam Adebayo. 2C. Donovan Mitchell. 2C. Paul George. Ja Morant. Anthony Davis. Kawhi Leonard. Jalen Brunson. Kyrie Irving. Tier C's? Wow. Actually, Jalen Brunson's a B. He is a 2B. Very interesting there. Then you get to Wemby, a 2B. Anthony Edwards, a 2B. Devin Booker, 2B. Jimmy Butler. I don't know if I agree with that one. 2B. SGA, a 2A. Jason Tatum, a 2A. And then LeBron James rounding out the tier 2s. Remember, De'Aaron is in the tier 2s with those players, although he is at the bottom of that as a 2C, but he is in the same tier as LeBron and the rest of the names that I named. Now, for your tier A players, some of them you guys have already mentioned. The Jaylen Brown one, that one's really got me confused. Your tier A players, Nikola Jokic, no surprise there. Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid. So those 6 NBA players are considered the best. So, Giannis Antetokounmpo as well. I am shocked that De'Aaron Fox is in the same category as Jaylen Brown. Does that surprise anybody else? Now let's hop to the tier 3s. These are the people below De'Aaron Fox. James Harden, Jamal Murray, Zion Williamson, Rudy Gobert, Chet Holmgren, Pascal Siakam, Damian Lillard. That one seems a little high, not going to lie. Trae Young, Tyrese Halliburton. Eat that. Anybody that still wants to talk about the trade. Just kidding. Drew Holiday. I think that is a little bit low for my liking. Then you have Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, Tyrese Maxey, Chris Middleton, Lauri Markkanen, DeMar DeRozan, the next king on the list. He is a 3C. Are you a little surprised? Domantas Sabonis' name has not been called yet. DeMar DeRozan, according to The Athletic, is a tier above as of right now. Domantas Sabonis. Then you've got Paolo Banchero and OG Anunoby rounding out the C's. All right. Do we have any more kings? Let's go to the tier 4. Bradley Beal, Jaren Jackson Jr., Mikal Bridges, Evan Mobley, Desmond Bane. And then you get to Domantas Sabonis. Third team All-NBA. He's a 4th tier player in the NBA. I don't know. And by the way, if you look at his rankings over time, from 2020 to this year, June of 24, his line has not moved. He has been a 4A player in the Athletics rankings. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Now, you do have one more king on the list. That is, guess who? Malik Monk. Malik Monk on the list. He is rated as a 4th tier player. So you have three Sacramento Kings, 4 Sacramento Kings, excuse me, listed in there. What do you think about that? Looking at the Athletic rankings, by the way, Derek. So it is the Athletic. They are doing tiers of NBA players. So if you had to separate them, these guys are tier 1, head and shoulders above everybody else. Then tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. That is how they have ranked the players. So you've got DeMar DeRozan, you got Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox listed all within the first 4 tiers. Really surprised about the Jaylen Brown thing. Really surprised. Keegan Murray is a 5th tier player according to them. So Anita weighing in. Thanks for sharing the list. Ryan, so interesting. Fox and Sabonis should have both been higher. Sabonis definitely should have been higher. I think Fox is right about where they have him. I don't know if I agree with that one because he's listed in the same tier as your Jaylen Browns and some of those other big name players, Kyrie Irving. So it's an interesting argument. You know, these lists are for just this argument. That's why they're created. But having 4 kings in the first 4 tiers, not too bad. And we talked about it yesterday, and I meant to ask Jerry this. We didn't get to it. I do think there's going to be a little bit of an underdog mentality coming from this team this year again. Last year, they felt a little bit more like the hunted. And don't get me wrong, teams are still going to want to come in and give the Kings hell because of the beam. Don't let them light it. You know, teams that got up for that. Let's not make any jokes about it. Teams took that serious. But I think with the level of perceived disrespect with Domantas Sabonis being left off, all the all-star teams, De'Aaron Fox left off, Malik Monk, not the 6th man of the year. I think this team's going to have a chip on their shoulder. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. Again, there is still time in this offseason for the Kings to make moves prior to the start of training camp, but do not be surprised if this is largely the core of the team that rolls into training camp at the end of September. So don't forget, Grant and I, we are going to be back tonight at 8 o'clock. A lot of stuff I did not get to. We'll roll that over to the 8 o'clock show. Same kind of format. We will open up the phone lines to all of you, and we will talk Olympics. We'll talk a lot of stuff, actually. Football, more injuries. MLB trade deadline has gone and passed. By the way, we got into it a little bit last night about the water quality in France and some of the events being altered because the water is not safe to swim in. I just want to say, per the EPA, 42% of the rivers in America do not meet swimming standards. So let's not throw stones if we also live in a glass house. Now, I'm not saying what's going on over there is not gross. It is, but it goes on everywhere. I thought Grant made a really good point there. So get your last comments in. We are about to wrap up. Do us a favor. Make sure you're subscribed to If You Don't Like That. If you are not one of the 7,000 already there, that's where you can find all of our shows in video form, including the entire library of our pre-post and halftime shows, football shows during the football season. Sean Salisbury likely to join us again this coming football season on Mondays. That will be a lot of fun. Baki hopping back in to close out the show with a comment. Let's see. What do you think, Rhino, if Giannis would have been a Serbian? What chance would you give to that Jokic Giannis bogey? It would be very different. But Baki, that's assuming Giannis isn't hurt. Dude has been hurt when it matters most in the NBA playoffs. I know he's not hurt right now in the Olympics, but he is getting close, and I mean dangerously close, to Kawhi Leonard territory in terms of availability when it absolutely matters. The Brats, that's a new name. What's up, the Brats? Kings got to play with a chip on their shoulder. Amen. Yes, indeed. They absolutely do. My pleasure, Alberto. Thank all of you for being here. Again, huge thanks to the one and only Jerry Reynolds. If you missed it, go check out the replay. By the way, if you are not subscribed to the Kings Court X page, do me a favor. Go subscribe or go give it a follow. You'll be able to find out anytime we're uploading new audio. Soon, we will be starting up our morning shoot-arounds that come every morning outside of this show. We'll still be doing this one as well. So make sure that you give that a follow if you haven't already. And again, we will be back tonight at 8 o'clock. Brent and I wrap up the night for you. Hopefully you can come join us. We'll recap the Olympics. I still haven't gotten to my take on 3-on-3 basketball. I was going to talk to Jerry about that, but I wanted to get him out. Did anybody watch the 3-on-3 basketball? We'll hold it over till 8 o'clock tonight. It was different. We will put it that way. Very, very different. And I'm not so sure it is good for the sport of basketball. So anyways, huge thanks to all of you for being here. Come back at 8 o'clock. Hopefully you can join us again. We'll be having a good time. And again, a huge thanks to the one and only Jerry Reynolds for coming on every Tuesday with us. Great job, by the way, with all the questions. Really appreciate it. Hey, Anita, so great to see you in the chat. Thanks for dropping in. We're going to get Tadora to do that thing one more time.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Go Kings. Stay the hell away from Levine. Light the damn beam. Court is dismissed.